You're listening to Under the Shell Podcast, the best in America.
Welcome to Under the Shell, presented by Inside the Black and Gold. I'm Brendan Weissel.
Jane.
And this week we have our first ever Super Bowl champion on the podcast, Jake Funk. Welcome to the show.
Well, first off, let's start. As you know, you graduated from Maryland and now have shifted into an alumni role per se. Have you seen a win since you left that's been as impressive as the one on Saturday? And were you able to check it out, the Terps and Wisconsin game?
That game pumped me up as an alumni, especially beating a team like Wisconsin that's been a powerhouse Big Ten program for a long time. I'm super excited. They look great. Malik Washington looks like the real deal. So I'm excited to see how they continue to just grow throughout the season.
You were, to talk a little bit about you, obviously you played in Maryland, but in high school, you weren't a super heralded guy, two-star recruit. I think you were then interim, Mike Locksley's first commitment at the time. Can you just kind of take us through that process of committing to Locksley in Maryland, and how much pride do you take in kind of being his first recruit and a big win in that regard?
Yeah, Locks was the guy who always believed in me when I was in high school, even when my recruiting was not as heavy as I initially wished it was. He was the guy that always was like talking to me throughout my senior year, and he was like, "Hey, we want to offer you. We're just trying to figure things out, and we're just trying to, navigate what our recruiting class looks like." And when he stepped up as the interim, I was the first guy that he immediately sent the running back coach at the time to come out to my high school practice, and then the next day they offered me, and then I think later that week I committed. And just, Locksley has always been a guy that believed in me since I was in high school. And then when he obviously came back as Maryland's head coach, gave me an opportunity to go out there and shine essentially in the little couple games that I had my last year. He's always been a guy that believed in me, and that process of him not only believing me when I was in high school, but in college has been awesome. And, I'm forever indebted to him for that.
Committing to an interim head coach is not something you really see very often, just because of all the question marks, maybe a little bit more back in the day with different challenges of NIL and transfer portal. But you obviously, it was important for you to stay home and stay in Maryland. And that's something that, we've seen with the trend of this year's team with some of the freshmen showing out. So why was that important to you to, stay close to your house and play in Maryland?
Really just because I take a lot of pride in coming from here, being from Maryland. And really it was more than anything, like I said, it was that a coach believed in me. And that to me was the most powerful thing is yes, it was the hometown team, but it was a coach that believed in me that I could play running back at the highest level. And so I committed more so to Locksley and it just happened to be at Maryland. And obviously staying home at Maryland was a thing that I took a lot of pride in too. So it kind of was like the best of both worlds. That's kind of how I would say is I committed to not only stayed home to Maryland, but committed to the coach because I believe in the coach.
And then you get to Maryland and you didn't redshirt really any year in the beginning of your career. You didn't redshirt freshman year, and then you have a couple of decent years to begin, but then your junior year, both redshirt and junior year, you tore your ACL. The first one I'd imagine just kind of you chalk up to shitty luck, I guess. Injuries happen, right? Mm-hmm. But when you have that second one, just mentally, that has to be so difficult. Can you just kind of take us through? I know it's far removed, but remember what your thought process was and how frustrated and just, I can imagine, mentally wore down you were when you had that second tear. Can you just take us through that as an athlete? I'd be very interested to hear.
Yeah, it's far removed, but it's something that sticks with you for the rest of my life. It was the toughest time in my football career. Yeah, like you said, the first one that happened, it happened against Ohio State back when we in 2018 when we lost in double overtime to the Bucks, or overtime, and we missed the 2 point. But that one happened on a kickoff, ran down, felt my knee pop, and kind of was like, it doesn't feel right, feels unstable, got an MRI, torn ACL. So you go through that whole rehab process. You get surgery, you do the whole rehab process. I was doing it with the Maryland training staff along with my brother who owns a physical therapy company in the DMV area. So he was also working hand in hand with the Maryland training staff, um, to really try to get me to a point where I needed to be to get back to playing. You come back, you play really well, you're getting into a groove. Played really well against Syracuse, coming back in 2019, and then in 2019 against Temple, I go down and I feel like a little pop in my knee, but nothing crazy. But I still went off the field and was like, something doesn't feel right. So I get an MRI after that game, and essentially I had partially torn that ACL, the same ACL. And my surgeon at the time was Leanne Curl, who's one of the Baltimore Ravens docs. She pretty much told me, she was like, you can go back and play, but if you have any aspirations to play in the NFL, you have to get this redone. So I get that redone because I obviously had aspirations to play in the NFL. Missed the rest of the season, and I mean, yeah, the second time around, you're sitting there, and it's like, I'll get more in depth about it. So the first ACL, they had to take the graft from my left knee. The second one they had to take from my right knee. So I had double knee surgery the second time around because they had to take the graft from my right knee to put into my left. Um, so you're in the hospital bed and you're just kind of sitting there, and you have double knee braces. You can't really walk, can't do anything. On top of that, I got an infection in my left knee after that one about a week later. Was on IV antibiotics for about a month, to clean out the infection. And then from there, it was just a mental grind all the way through, to get back into the 2020 season. Um, on top of that, COVID hit during the spring of 2020. So everybody went home. Everybody was not on campus. So I'm sitting there by myself having to just work out on my own, train on my own because we couldn't do anything at the University of Maryland. So that whole off season was kind of just an absolute mental and physical grind, just trying to get back because I knew I had an opportunity in 2020 because I had Anthony McFarland and Javon Leake both leave for the NFL. So the door was open for me to come back and be the guy. Um, so yeah, so I mean, it was a mental and physical grind the whole way through. Um, just rehabbing and getting through all of that, and then doing it all pretty much on my own with just the support that I have at home versus support at the University of Maryland because of COVID. So yeah, it was, yeah, like I said, it was just a grind. But at the end of the day, it made me a better football player and a better person because when you go through those things, you have a lot of gratitude towards the people that helped you and the process of getting to where you want to be.
Yeah. Your older brother has a physical therapy clinic, right? Did you use that?
Yes.
Were you
Oh
guys
yeah.
rehabbing together?
Yeah. So somehow he was. It was actually funny during 2020. During that year, he was deemed as an essential business. So he was able to use his facilities as a place for NFL guys or college athletes who were home to be able to train at, which was actually pretty cool. So I was training in there, rehabbing with a lot of other guys who happened to play college football who were back in the area. So that was also a really cool thing about the whole process, was that not only was I able to like work out with him and rehab with him, but I was able to do it with a bunch of other college and NFL players at the time.
Yeah, I mean, what was like you talked about how if you wanted to play in the NFL, you were going to have to get another surgery. What went into that decision? And then were there any points where you're just like, maybe this isn't worth it? Obviously, looking back, it worked out for you. You made the NFL, but were there any points where like, maybe it just not quite doesn't make sense to get a second knee surgery?
Uh, I mean, there wasn't for me. It was like, okay, I've done it once, I can do it again. Um, and I was not at that moment ready to just give up on football. I wanted to play the NFL. I wanted to play in the NFL. I saw a bunch of my former teammates like Trey Edmonds, Ty Johnson, Anthony McFarland, all these guys that are getting drafted playing in the NFL. And I'm sitting there and I'm like, I compete day in and day out with these guys. I know I'm just as good as these guys. I just need an opportunity. So I went into that second ACL and was like, you know what? Let's do it. And just put my head down and work to get back. And I mean, that's kind of how it happened. Were there times where you're sitting there in the hospital bed and you got two knee braces on and you can't move and you're like, how the hell am I going to do this? But at the end of the day, my dad told me, because I got emotional at times, like it was not always like positive at all times. So my dad told me in the hospital bed, and it was pretty much all the motivation that I needed. He was like, when you play in the NFL, you're going to thank God for this moment. Um, and he could not have been more right. So,
I guess I wanted to ask then, you play in the COVID season and you obviously ball out, best year of your career. What was the weirdest moment or like difference that you had to get used to from playing in a COVID season? Do you have a good story that you remember that sticks out?
yeah, that whole season was just wacky. It was from everything from like, oh, we're season's on to no, we're canceling the season to then bringing it back, and then having to go through you get a few games here. I get COVID, I miss a game. But I'll tell you guys a funny story that I have. So at one point, it was advised to try to play football with a mask over your face if you could. So a few of us took the liberty one day during training camp to practice the whole practice with a mask over our face to try to prove a point that like you can't do this. and and we did, and we were dying out on the field the whole time. The trainers are like trying to get us water, and we're trying to like push water through a mask because we can't take it off, and we're just kind of having fun with it, but also dying at the same time. Um, but yeah, I mean, that whole season, we were living in a hotel. We had to take daily COVID tests every day just to be in the facility. We'd have to separate guys half of the team could go into the locker room at one time, and then they showered, and then the other half came in, and then it was there was all these different rules and regulations where you're just like you just had to go with it at the time because it was how the world was going, you know.
Do you ever wish that you got like, or, I mean, look back and like, damn, I really wish I had like a normal senior year.
Yeah, I say that, but then also like I look back and like yeah, it was all wacky and it was weird, but it was arguably like the most fun I had in college because all the guys were just in the hotel and we were all together all the time. We like couldn't like in a normal college setting like everybody lives in different places, but like our whole team was the at the hotel, and like to some degree, like some guys that were obviously of age, like we would go down to the hotel bar and like get a beer if like we had a day off the next day or something. Like we were able to like connect as a team, and
You're isolated even more, I guess, in a sense. And
yeah, you're isolated. So it was even like it was super fun. Like me and my one buddy, we went out and got guitars, and like we're just learning how to play guitar in the hotel together. Like it was kind of one of those things where it was weird, but it was also fun at the same time.
You mentioned it, but like heading into the NFL draft, obviously you're very thankful for what happened, but heading into the draft, what was your expectation? Kind of what were you hearing about, your possibility of getting drafted? Obviously it worked out, but what were your thoughts going in?
Um, Honestly, my thoughts going in, so I had a lot of debates whether or not to like come back to Maryland or leave. And the reality was what ended up pushing me to go and just take my shot in the NFL was that I had already torn my ACL twice. So when you look at like the NFL draft, you you're sealing it to get drafted is maybe at most fifth round with two ACLs in college because of your history. So that was kind of like what I looked at. It was like, well, I could come back, I could be the guy, I could have a full season, but how much of it is really going to improve my draft stock? Even if let's say I had an all Big Ten season, whatever, because of my injury history, how much would it improve? And then on top of that, if I did get re-injured, you might as well kiss the NFL goodbye. A third season-ending injury in college, like you might as well kiss it goodbye. So I decided to just take my shot, and was like, you know what? Like I'm ready. I've played long enough in college. I'm ready. Went out and had my pro day, was training for that, and then did what I did during pro day. And then I think that kind of skyrocketed me because I think before that I was kind of like a priority free agent, somebody that get picked up after the draft. But then I had my pro day, and that was like, okay, now this guy could possibly be a late round pick, which ended up happening.
So then you bounce around in the league for a bit. Obviously, the best season for you, the Super Bowl, I'd imagine.
Mhm.
You know, when you're on the team, I can't remember. You saw the field a little bit in that game, correct? Or am I
The NFC Championship game.
NFC Championship? Okay.
Yeah.
How cool was that just to be a part of it? I mean, like, I just have to imagine afterwards your phone's probably blowing up with just people, hitting you up.
Yeah.
Like, does it feel just as good as, I guess, what people talk about it being? And if there's a way to capture it, kind of, whether it's an anecdote or just a thing you remember from that experience, what would it be?
I mean, I would just say it's like you look up at the confetti and you're like, this is the pinnacle. Like this is what you work your whole entire life for, right? Is to be in the Super Bowl and watch the confetti come down and your team has won. Um, and that's what I tell people. I'm like, it's the pinnacle. It's literally the highest that you can get in football is winning that Super Bowl. And I mean, it was absolutely incredible. And it was the most fun I've had every single week. Like we had a great team, great group of guys. And it was insane that like that was my first year in the NFL. And it was funny because like you sit there and you're like, this may never happen again. It's my first year. Like you just don't know. Um, but truly just thankful for the the opportunity to play for that team. And I mean, we had a great team and a great group of guys.
Then, you go through the next 4 or 5 years and you're doing the kind of classic where you're like kind of on the end of rosters or like practice squads. Just as a player, like mentally, what is that process like when every week, like you're just not completely sure if you're going to be on the team?
Yeah, I mean it's a mental grind. Yeah, after that, I kind of been bouncing around, like you said. But it's a different lifestyle. And that's what I'll say. You're kind of in and out of hotel rooms, in and out of short-term Airbnbs. Um, and if like let's say you're on the P squad, like every single week, like your job is at risk essentially. And it may be not from anything that you did or didn't do. It's just they have to shuffle the roster to fit needs if some position goes down or whatnot. So you're kind of at the mercy of like what the team needs at times. But at first, like it would really frustrate me. But then I kind of realized, like, as I went through the years, that like this is the business side of the league, and that it's not really truly personal. It's just business. And but yeah, I mean, it's a different lifestyle. You're living in and out of hotels. You are out there on scout team, and for me personally, if you know anything about football, scout team running back is arguably the worst position on the field, besides maybe scout team O-line, because the defense is allowed to just tee off on you, essentially, and you're in there getting hit, getting beat up every single day. But I mean, but you're also out there to try to make the defense better for Sunday. So you got to kind of look at it both ways. But yeah, I mean, it's a grind, but I love it. I can't hate on it too much when they give you a job and you're playing in the NFL with an opportunity to get pulled up, and the opportunity to make a team in training camp. Like you can't hate on it at all. But it's definitely a different lifestyle than I would say some of the guys that are on the roster and who have been paid. And that's kind of the where I think it's funny in the NFL, because you got some guys who are, let's say, making $100 million, and then you got some guys that are down here that are week to week guys that are trying to get on the roster, bottom of the roster guys, and they all sit in the same meeting rooms and they all lift at the same times, and like they all do things the same thing. We all practice at the same times, but it's just the difference in locker room in the NFL.
You talked about how hard the life is. First off, I just wanted to say congratulations on your first child. I saw
Appreciate it.
Your girlfriend. Well, first off, just really quick, did you ever expect to be dating someone who was in a reality TV show, or now married to, I guess?
Yeah. She's probably hearing you guys. She's right out there. But yeah, I mean, not really. I mean, I went out to LA, and me and her actually met out there. She was living out there at the time, and we just kind of meshed like right away. It was one of those things where it was a no-brainer from the start.
Yeah.
She's a girl that I met, and I was like, how the hell were you on reality TV out of all people? Because she's never seemed like that type of person at all to me. And I guess I had a stereotype in my head that was wrong, in a sense, of like what a reality TV person would be like. But I mean, yeah, me and her have been married for about a year and a half now, and then expecting our first child here in 2 months. So that's going to be interesting, but exciting.
Congratulations, man. I was doing like research before, and they said that you slid in her TikTok DMs or something like that as your first way of going. Let's see.
I did.
Anybody ever needs?
It's kind of unbelievable.
Yeah. You'll laugh. I saw a good-looking TikTok, and I was like, you know what?
Yeah. Hey, man.
She's in LA. I'm in LA. Why not?
Why not? You were on the TikTok game before it was even like blowing up.
Yeah. The worst thing I get is a no response, and I move on with my life.
Yeah, exactly. I know. You're the success story for all men who are trying to slide in DMs. I do have a secret or a serious question kind of on the back end of that. You talked about how hard kind of the practice squad life is, bouncing around. How much strain, I guess, does that put on your family life with her? And then, you're still aiming to make the league. I know. And with a child on the way, how much have you thought about the balance that life is going to have to take, I guess?
It's definitely, it puts a strain on it. For sure. I mean, it's even one of those things where our baby's due here around Thanksgiving. So let's say I'm on a team here in the next couple of weeks, like with the baby doing Thanksgiving, like I obviously want to be there for the birth. So you essentially tell the team like that your wife could be due any day, and you fly down, you may be able to miss a day of practice or whatever. You fly down, you fly right back. And then you just kind of leave your wife and your newborn child to go work, which is, very interesting. I mean, and then on top of take the baby out of the equation, when you're trying to mesh like an at-home life with your work life, but you're always bouncing around, living out of hotels. Sometimes I'll go weeks without seeing her because I'm in a hotel and somewhere across the country, and it's just not worth it for her to take away from what she's doing to come stay in a hotel with me and not know anybody or not do anything across the country, let's say. So it's definitely tough, but over the last couple of years, we've been able to find a system that works for us. And once you find a system that works for you and your loved one, like you make it work, you know?
Yeah, absolutely. What's been your just day-to-day training to try to get back on a roster?
I'll be down. I usually get up around like 6 in the morning, Monday through Friday. I'll be down at their training facility around 7:30. And then I start with like PT, do like prehab stuff. And then I'll go run around. We'll do like speed training, agility training, position work from like 8:15 to 9:30, and then I'll lift from about 10 to 11. And so like pretty much all morning is my training to get back into the NFL, and then in my afternoons, I've been preparing a nursery. So that's been my day job, I guess you could say. While not being employed by the NFL at the moment, I've been helping my wife get ready for this baby. So it's actually been nice because it's been giving me something to do.
Hey man, that's pretty sweet. But that's all we got for you. Thank you so much for taking the time, and we hope to see you on Sundays soon.
Yeah, I appreciate you guys reaching
Definitely.
out.
Before we get back to the show, a quick word from our sponsor. The Catalyst to the Game is brought to you by Catalyst Hot Dogs. Catalyst brought the Jersey Dog to the DMV, featuring premium dry-aged Black Angus all-beef hot dogs made in Maryland, served with handmade toppings, including hot onions, relish, and their signature Texas chili sauce. And don't miss their original garlic knot dogs. Catalyst always offers vegan dogs as well as gluten-free buns, shout out gluten-free buns, because Catalyst has food for everyone. Find them in CQ Stadium in Section 14 and the Xfinity Center in Section 210. Tell the people a hot dog is a sandwich. All right, now here's more Under the Shell.
Appreciate Jake for coming on. Definitely a really funky guest, pun intended. But as he said, that was he felt really proud as an alumni. I'm sure a lot of you felt really proud as fans watching Maryland football last Saturday. Dissected Wisconsin. Just frankly played much better than the Badgers in a game that I think was surprising to everybody. Mike, you picked with Maryland to win, but I don't even think you probably expected the level of just physical domination that they had in the defensive line, and then for the pass game to really work as well as it did, especially considering the lack of running game. I guess if you just had to give 3 quick takeaways from the game, you were at Camp Randall, what would those 3 be?
The Terps outcoached, out executed, and outplayed the Badgers. And I think that might be one of the few times in Mike Locksley's tenure that you can say that he did that against a conference opponent, outcoaching Luke Fickell, someone who Wisconsin fans don't have a lot of respect for now, but is a good coach. And by halftime, Wisconsin fans were booing Fickell and wanted him gone. It seemed like the Terps were hitting on all cylinders. I mean, you could tell right off the gate with the blocked field goal and then the blocked punt, kind of the way that this game was going. I was really impressed with Malik's deep ball on Saturday as well. He missed one to Caleb Webb early in the first quarter, but then he hit that one at the end of the first half to put them in the field goal range, kind of like a statement there for the Terps to get that extra 3 points at the end of the half. And then he got the kill shot there in the fourth quarter to Shalik Knox to put the game away. I think this game really showed where Maryland is. They're a good team this year. That was a statement victory for them. Now, I will say Wisconsin is injured. Wisconsin is not a Wisconsin team of Wisconsin past. So I am interested to see what they do against an undefeated Washington after the bye week. I think that'll be pretty interesting. But looking at the schedule, we were predicting the Terps to win 4 games, 5 games. I think they could win 8 games now, in all honesty. Like, this game has me feeling really positive about Maryland.
You think the new over-under is at 7.5, Mike?
I would put it at 7.5, yeah.
I'm going to push back a little. Me, the wet blanket of the podcast. I will say, well, I think that this win was really impressive. I called it, I think, Mike Locksley's one of his best games since he's gotten here. In terms of, like Mike said, I thought they outcoached. They made winning plays on the margins that you don't usually see Maryland making. Brendan, our special team connoisseur, had to be very happy when they blocked a field goal and a punt in the first half. It's the first time.
Unbelievable.
Yeah, first time in a while. I think I remember the stat. It was 2017 since Maryland blocked 2 kicks in a game. But let's play the devil's advocate for a sec, okay? They still can't run the ball. we know that that's needed to win in the Big Ten. Wisconsin has a good rushing defense, but they haven't been able to run it now for 4 straight weeks. There's going to be games Malik Washington's going to make a couple mistakes, right? He had a couple of throws that throughout the first couple of weeks, that could have been turnovers that weren't. That's going to happen eventually. And I don't think Wisconsin is going to win more than maybe 2 or 3 Big Ten games, unless Billy Edwards gets healthy. They were awful, especially offensively. It was so surprising to see just the lack of a rushing game that the Badgers have. And I think that the backup quarterback, the interception he threw to Jalen Husky, Danny O'Neal, that was just brutal.
That was the most Maryland football interception ever thrown, except it was thrown by Wisconsin.
Yeah, exactly. So I do want to caution from fans, really, I think it's very okay to be excited. And I'm not telling you how to fan. If you want to say they're going to the college football playoff, go right ahead. But I do think that there's a bit of caution to be had about overreacting to one game. This team still has flaws. I think there's less flaws than maybe I anticipated, but the 2 weeks upcoming, Nebraska and Washington, I think will tell us a lot about where this team is at and where they could eventually get to. But I think through 4 games, you have to be feeling tremendous as a Terps fan, not only because of the record, but because your quarterback looks like someone who is legitimately playing like one of the top half quarterbacks in the Big Ten, if not right in the top 5. So I think Malik, has been really promising, and you couldn't have asked for a better game from Maryland on Saturday.
I want to go back to that 7.5 line with Brendan there. Looking at the schedule right now, of course, you got Washington, Nebraska after the bye week. Then you got UCLA. Maryland's going to be favored in that game. UCLA just fired their coach. You got Indiana. That should be a tough game. I do not think the Terps are going to be able to take that one. But then you get Rutgers. You get Illinois, Michigan, 2 ranked games. And then you end the season against Michigan State. 8 wins is very much in reach for this team. And if they can pick off one of those ranked wins too, which, we were all talking about Malik Washington in the away crowd, his first away game, his first conference road game. Malik Washington looked fine. I don't think that was a factor at all. I don't think it's going to be a factor when he's facing a ranked opponent either, just with the composure that he had at Wisconsin. So I think there's a chance that they can pick off one of those ranked opponents as well. Brendan, what do you think?
Yeah, Malik looked unbelievable. As far as the schedule goes, there's a realistic path to winning 8 or 9 games, which is just an unbelievable thing that I never thought I would ever be saying. If I told you 2 years ago in the 2025 Maryland football schedule, their hardest game of the year would be against Indiana, you would have thought I was absolutely insane. But as the schedule shakes out, Indiana played a ridiculous game against Illinois. They might be one of the best teams in the country. But as their schedule shakes out, we knew all along it was an easy Big Ten schedule. We said this in the first episode. And the question was, if Maryland is slightly better than we think, then they can definitely take advantage of it. And honestly, right now, with 7.5, I think I probably would take the over. If they play like they do, if they play like they did in the Wisconsin game, Wisconsin made a ton of mistakes, but that team was very composed, and the biggest issue is obviously still drops. The rushing didn't look great, but if you're throwing wide open passes and your receivers aren't catching them, there's a realistic chance that Maryland could have put up 40 points in that game if their receivers caught some of their passes. Some of them, Shalik Knox played well. Sam had a terrible take earlier in the year, but I say all this to say, if Maryland has a similar performance.
Worst take.
Should we talk about the take for a second? Is this worse than your baseball take from last year?
It might be worse. Shalik Knox, this is a breakout year now.
I heard that Shalik Knox, before every game, turns on the first episode of Under the Shell and listens to that take.
Hey, all publicity is good publicity, baby. I just wanted to, Michael House coming at me like this, the amount of garbage takes that he's given on this podcast that I haven't circled back to is frankly.
The baseball team is going to finish in the top of the Big Ten last year.
He said Malik Washington is going to be the all-time passing leader. He's brought up how he thought that Maryland, when Talia, after they beat SMU the one year, I think we had a take from Michael House saying they could win the Big Ten. I don't think that this is the guy that we want to point to. For
another lie.
That's
all right, whatever. Let's talk football schedule. If Maryland plays like they did against Wisconsin, they're going to be competitive in almost every game. And it gives them a chance. And as you know, in football, if your team is competent and better, all you have to do is just good. As I've said all along this podcast, good teams win games. And the jump that this Maryland team made from week one, from the first quarter of the first game where they looked like it was their first time all the coaches, anybody had ever stepped on a football field, and they had so many penalties, to the game against Wisconsin when they looked composed, they looked competent, they had very few penalties. I mean, if they play the way they did against Wisconsin, this team, there's a legitimate path to them winning 9 games, which is an unbelievable thing to say. Do you think they'll do it? I don't think they will, but you could make the argument that it's possible.
Yeah, I guess. I'm really interested to see how it looks against Washington, and we'll preview that game next week. Real quick before we move on, I want to do a little game here to kind of summarize. There's obviously quarters or tries of the season, so obviously we're through the first try. 4 games in. If you had to pick Maryland's kind of MVP this year, not name Malik Washington, who would that be for you? Because I think there's been a lot of surprising candidates who really stuck out. Obviously, Malik is the main guy, but if you had to go with someone other than the quarterback, who would it be? Brendan, let's start with you.
I mean, maybe the offensive and defensive coordinators, but if I'll give you a real answer, I will say Sean O'Hare.
A good pick. I think he's been good.
But my real answer will be Sean O'Hare. I think kicking, I'm not even trolling, he has looked unbelievable, and it matters a ton in these Big Ten games, being able to put points on the board. You saw Wisconsin get a kick block, huge momentum play. They had been inconsistent last year. Definitely not the conventional pick, but seriously, he's looked really, really, really solid, and that matters a ton. Think about in the past 3 years when we've been covering this Maryland football team, of how many close Big Ten games they've lost because they've missed field goals. More than one. Definitely 5.
I'm going to say Daniel Wingate. I mean, there's a lot of, obviously Maryland lost their linebackers from last year. So going into the season, that was a huge question mark on the defense. Who is going to be manning the middle for them? Wingate has stepped in. He has 39 total tackles. He had that touchdown. It was the pick 6 week 1 against FAU. He has a sack on the season as well. He has taken command of that position on the defense. He's been the leader of the defense so far. If you could do another one on the defense, I would say the outside corners, Jamar Glasker and Dante Joyner. Glasker's been out the past 2 weeks now, so hopefully he's back for Maryland after the bye week. And then I'll do one more.
No, absolutely not. You can't be keeping taking.
And then we're gonna do Shalik Knotts. Then Shalik Knotts, obviously. He's waited his turn. His first 3 years at Maryland were a disappointment.
He's not a year away anymore. I'll say it.
Really not a year away. The year is now 2025.
If Shalik Knotts finishes with more than 700 yards receiving, I'll buy both of you his NIL merch. How about that?
I absolutely.
All right, sounds cool.
All right, we'll do that. But if you
Sounds cool.
Under 700 yards, you both have to admit on the podcast that I have the best takes. Moving on.
Great. He's going to finish with more than 700,
right.
So go with
Deal,
me.
Brendan. My picks will be the freshman edge rushers, specifically Sidney Stewart, and then also Zahir Mathis. Guys, Maryland leads the FBS in sacks. If I told you that would be a stat 4 weeks into the season with all the transfers they had at the edge rusher spot, you would have looked at me like I was crazy. It would have been a worse take than the Shalik Knox one. But Sidney Stewart's been excellent. He's the first FBS freshman in 20 years to record a sack in his first 4 games. He leads the team in pressures. He's been excellent off the edge. Really just looks like an all-around good pass rusher. He has kind of that like tweener build, so he's got some pop and power to him, but he also has pretty good bend. And then Mathis is kind of your tall, really well built out freshman edge rusher that you don't see often in college football. So those two have been super impressive to me. And to be able to get pressure with 4, I think has really freed up Marciano to come up with some exotic calls and also rely on those two to get home. So if they keep this up, that's a huge, huge element to this defense that they haven't had in a while, actually. And I'll leave you with this. Imagine adding Zion Ely to this group. If they're able to retain Mathis and Stewart, that's going to be one of the best pass rushes in the Big Ten, if not the country. So really exciting stuff off the edge for Maryland.
Yeah, no, I mean, it's not something I think any of us expected, and I would just give credit to the coaching staff. The player development from the jump from last year to this year, when we looked at the roster, we didn't see anything jump off the page. We all talked about it, and it's been much more impressive than we thought. So I'll give them credit where credit's due there. Let me just say this, that if the college football playoff was in September, Maryland would probably win it every year. Unfortunately for the Terps, that's not the case. And so as you look at the schedule going forward, they have a lot more narratives to tear down. Can't really win on the road in the Big Ten. They obviously did that, and they can't win as underdogs in the Big Ten. They did that. coming off a bye week, which Maryland has upcoming, and then they face Washington. But just like, playing solid Big Ten football in October and November, that's the biggest thing this team has to overcome. But I think the biggest benefit for them is that it's a ton of new people, and so they don't really remember all those tropes.
I'll leave it on this before we head into soccer, but for all the talk that Mike Locksley is a good recruiter and is not a good in-game coach, like I said, he absolutely worked Luke Fickell at Wisconsin. The team out-executed them, outplayed them, looked like they out-prepared them. Maryland was better on every single front over the Badgers on
A
Saturday.
lot of championing of Mike Locksley after one game.
That's a strong win for him.
It's the biggest win of his time at Maryland. It's not even
it
close.
Definitely is.
So,
I'm just saying that I don't think we can change a narrative around a head coach after they.
I'm
not changing
I mean,
the narrative.
you are. You just.
I will say that's what I saw. The team, he outcoached Luke Fickell at Wisconsin.
Luke Fickell doesn't have a job anymore.
No, he does not.
I mean, he does. He is employed by Wisconsin currently, but by the end of the season, I'd be surprised if he does. So,
I'm just saying, let's hold our horses a little bit until they get out of September, okay? And we start to see what they look like after the bye week. Then you can really start to make proclamations about how, Locksley's changes have paid off. But I don't think that we can go around saying that this season has changed the narrative around who Mike Locksley is as a coach quite yet. It'll be interesting to see.
I think the win saved him his job for another year or two, though.
You think this win saved him
this win?
Yeah. After that win, I came back from Camp Randall, and I was like, yeah, Mike Locksley's going to be coaching the Terps in 2026.
And there's Michael House for you.
I think it has nothing to do with this win at all. But this is nothing. It has literally nothing. They could have won. Mike, they could have lost this game, and he'd still have his job next year. Everybody knows that.
Well, I mean, they win this game. I think they're going to win a couple more Big Ten games now. At this point, I would feel fairly confident that they're going to go bowling. I think if they lost, I think if they won 4 or less games this year and Malik did not look good, Locksley would have been out. But this win, Locksley will be heading to Terps in 2026.
This guy.
I agree. This is definitely his best chance that he's had at his time at Maryland to finish with a winning record. If you look at the
This is the
rest of the
first time
schedule,
he has a freshman quarterback to work with at Maryland too, and develop and see how that kind of grows for the program.
yeah.
Anyway,
Shout out Malik.
let's move.
Vibes are definitely high in the program. There's no doubt about that.
We'll all
Vibes are high.
we'll all agree on that.
Congrats on the win, coach.
Low key, vibes are high across all of Maryland athletics. Soccer's been playing well. Men's soccer beat Pitt this past weekend. Pitt has had a weird start to the year. They were ranked the 3rd best team in the country after the first poll and have had a pretty abysmal stretch since then. Maryland took advantage of their slide. Saddam Masareka had a great goal to seal it. We're recording on Tuesday. They will play Penn State this evening, and then on Friday they'll take on Northwestern at home. 2 teams that haven't been great in the past couple of years, near the bottom of the Big Ten. They got to try to get 4 points out of those. I mean, Maryland still hasn't lost. They're 5-0-1. Got to try to get 4 points. A win and a draw would be ideal. I don't expect Maryland to drop any of these games, but men's soccer looking good. They're now in the top 25 of the RPI. The coaches poll hasn't come out. I would suspect they're going to be ranked. I thought that last week. I thought that 2 weeks ago. They still haven't been ranked, so not quite sure there, but I'm sure Sasha is pretty excited that they're not ranked because it's just good motivation. From men's soccer to women's soccer, incredible news out of the women's soccer program. The Terps went 2-0 this past weekend. They beat Indiana and Purdue. I said it, they had a chance to, get some points for sure in those games. Definitely not teams that are incredible in the Big Ten, but they showed a lot of resilience in the Indiana game. They went down 1-0, scored 2 goals to take the lead and win that game all in the second half. And the biggest thing they did in that game that they hadn't done in their previous Big Ten games or their other losses, like in the Florida game, they just generated a lot of chances. They outshot or nearly outshot Indiana. And so doing that, gave them a chance to win. They have, as you said, they have Big Ten talent across the board. And they put it to use in these 2 games. Against Purdue, they did get outshot, but they won. And it's the first time since 2022 that they've won back-to-back conference games. You guys want to guess the teams they beat in 2022? The 2 teams they beat to win back-to-back conference games?
Maryland Eastern Shore and
conference games. Do you know what a conference is, Michael?
There it is. Just another good take, Mike.
Another blunder mid-episode. Maryland Eastern Shore, notable member of the Big Ten.
2 teams that they're playing that they beat.
The two teams that they beat
Okay.
last time in 2022 when they won
Minnesota.
conference games, or two conference games.
And Indiana.
Mike, what do you got?
I'll say Purdue and Minnesota.
It was Purdue and Indiana. It was the exact same two teams they beat this weekend. You guys went 2 for 4 there, kind of. But looking ahead at their schedule, I don't suspect them to have much success this weekend. They do the very difficult thing. They travel out west to USC and to UCLA. Winning against two teams that are either receiving votes or in the top 25 on the road is going to be tough. But it's just a very good chance for them to, if they can steal some points, do that. But they have a tough stretch, and they got to be happy with their 2 wins this past weekend. Mike, what's going on in the field hockey world?
Yeah, we talked about it a couple weeks ago. Missy Mahart's squad had that rough stretch in the Big Ten ACC Challenge where they lost 2 straight top 10 games. Since then, they've won 2 ranked games. They beat number 13 St. Joseph's on September 14th, and then last Friday they beat number 16 Penn State. So not a top 10 opponent like Boston College or Duke, but 2 good wins, quality wins for Missy Mahart's squad, and they're going to have some more tough games coming up this week. Friday, they're going to be hosting number 12 Michigan at the Field Hockey and Lacrosse Complex, and then Sunday, another tough one, number 8 Princeton. That's always a tough, challenging game for the Terps. So gauntlet keeps going for Missy Mahart's squad, and we'll see where they go. And then on to volleyball with the out-of-conference slate over for out-of-conference Adam Hughes's team. They went 7-3 in the out-of-conference slate, and they're going to be kicking off their conference stretch with Iowa and Nebraska on the road.
Yeah, those are going to be 2 tough games. I don't suspect them to take either of them. Just the way they've looked against some of the better teams some of the better teams they've played so far this season. None of them have been the best teams in the country, and they've still struggled. And so wouldn't expect them to take down Iowa or Nebraska on the road this weekend. But we'll have the recaps next week. Speaking of recaps, let's recap our picks from the past weekend. I had a pretty unfortunate stretch. I went 1-2, my worst weekend so far this year, but still in the lead at 8-4. So I'll kick off our picks.
Someone's making his picks for him this year. This can't be real.
Yeah, no, it's 8-4, dude. Come on. I went 1-2 last week, and I came back down.
Are you helping him out?
Oh, come on. I came back down to earth. You're good. Let me tell you what I got here. I picked all Big Ten last week. I made myself look like a fool. Let's take University of Massachusetts Amherst, the Minutemen plus 42.5 against Missouri, Stanford minus 2.5 against San Jose State, and BYU minus 5.5 against Colorado. There we go. A nice 3-0 weekend coming up.
I am 7-5. Last week I had Michigan and Tennessee both hit. Oklahoma, unfortunately, did not. I'm going to go. Let's get it started with a big game. I'm going to take Utah to bounce back and beat West Virginia. They're 10.5-point favorites. Then I want to take the game of the week. You know what? Give me LSU plus 1.5 against Ole Miss. I think that's a really weird line. I like the Tigers in that one. And then finally, wrap it up. Another huge game. I'm not going to take Penn State minus 3.5 as much as I want to. I think that I'm going to go with Oregon plus 3.5. I think this is going to be a really fun game to watch, and I'm super excited to see what happens in that one.
Penn State is not beating a ranked opponent, so
yeah.
I like your picks, Sam.
Yeah.
Same
yeah,
with
those
you.
are very good picks, unfortunately.
I'm 6-6 on the year. I've really been kind of lofted up by that 1-3-0 week, so we got to get back in the winning column this week. I'm going to be taking Notre Dame's 4-point favorites over Arkansas this weekend. I'm going to take Georgia 3-point favorites over Alabama since Saban left. Hasn't really been the same Alabama. And then we're going to take Memphis 13.5-point favorites over FAU. Memphis just had a big win last week, and we saw FAU week 1. That's not a good team, so I like Memphis there.
Yeah. The picks are all close this year. No Maryland to pick this week with the bye, so we'll just head right into.
I think they'll probably win this weekend. Yeah.
They'll remain.
I like them against the bye week. I like them.
Although after the bye week, we all know what happened.
Oh no! Oh boy.
We'll talk about that next week. But
you know what's? It's a nightmare scenario, really, Sam. It's a family weekend and after a bye week.
Michael, we're gonna have to be having a lot of Michael Locksley discourse after they lose to.
I mean, if he breaks the family weekend curse and what do you even want from me at that point?
Looking for a new coach. Bring on the lock.
So are the New York Jets. They could probably have
Yeah.
used him. But yeah, it's an incredible slate of college football this weekend. So without Maryland, I kind of recommend you sit on your couch from 12 to 12 and just see what the rest of the world's got going on. We had Funk on this week, so I got an adjacent to Terrific Terp from his time. This week's Terrific Terp is an all-time college football transfer portal superstar and Maryland football journeyman quarterback. In fact, the first Maryland football game I ever went to back in 2016 was one of the games where Tyrell Pigrome, known as Piggy, got his chance to shine. His college journey was filled with injury, and he came to Maryland from the state of Alabama after winning the 2015 Gatorade Player of the Year in high school there. His greatest accomplishment included leading the Terps to a victory over number 23 Texas in 2017. However, he is really known for his missed two-point conversion throw that would have upset Ohio State in 2018 that we talked about earlier in this episode with Funk. His junior year, he became the first Maryland quarterback to start in 4 different seasons for the Terps. After the 2019 season, he transferred to Western Kentucky, where he played in 11 games and led the Hilltoppers to a bowl game, but a bowl loss. Following that year, he transferred to Ole Miss, where he did not appear in any action, and then he once again transferred for his final college season to Towson, where he appeared in 11 games with them. He started in Maryland, finished at Towson. Pretty wild. His college career, which started in 2016 and ended in 2022, led him to play some pro ball. He bounced around in the Canadian Football League. And then as of February of 2025, he signed with the Potsdam Royals in Germany. The transfer portal journeyman and Maryland football controversial star is this week's Terrific Terp.
Shout out Tyrell Pigrome. I don't know if I ever heard someone
Shout out Piggy.
I don't know if I ever heard someone call him a transfer portal superstar, but that loss against
I just meant the fact that he went to a bunch of different schools.
He's a transfer portal. He's a super transfer portal. I don't know about a star.
He's a star, yeah. I didn't know if he was a star on the field. I didn't say star on the field. He was just a star at putting his name in the hat and telling someone to, Ole Miss at Towson's kind of nuts though, low key.
Yeah, that loss
Yeah,
against
it's kind of nuts.
that Ohio State loss, it still stings with a lot of Terps fans. It's still a hump that Maryland really hasn't gotten over, beating one of the Big Ten's superpowers. So maybe
Set the program back 10 years.
I don't know about that. I think there was some other stuff that happened that year that might have done that. But
some people like you might argue it set the program forward because then Loxley got hired, but we don't have to do that debate.
all right, now I'm the biggest Loxley fan. Well, thank you all for listening. What did you say, Sam?
I was just gonna say Mike Howes loves 2 people.
Congrats, Coach,
and
on the win. Congrats on the win, Coach.
Yeah, congrats.
It's Mike Loxley and it's that other basketball coach.
Mark Turgeon.
Yeah.
Loxley, Mark Turgeon, and Matt Swope. That's my trinity right there.
That's his Mount Rushmore.
Anyways, appreciate everybody for listening this week. As always, you can check us out on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube, Instagram, Twitter, anywhere you find your podcast. Have a great week.
Guess what? You've got Under the Shell Podcast. Nobody does it better.